So you're looking for your first truck driving job. What do you need to ask the recruiters? Hey, this is Trucker 219. Thanks for clicking on my channel. We are going over some things that you need to be asking your recruiters when you're giving them a phone call to find out if it's a good idea or not for you to go and work for them at their company. All right, let's go. All right, so the first thing you want to ask, depending on where you are in your career, if you're just starting out and you don't have a CDL, it's important to ask the company that you want to go work for if they offer CDL training for people that do not have a CDL. If their answer is yes, you need to find out what that means. What does it look like to go through their CDL training school to where you can get your CDL? Is it a 3-week course, a 3-month course? Are they going to pay you for that training? Are they going to give you some sort of accommodations for lodging during that time? Is it going to be in a different state from you? Is there going to be transportation to that area? These are all big questions that you need to be looking for when you're asking them if they offer CDL training to get your CDL. The other option, if you're just starting out, is to go to a private institution. And then you should be asking the recruiters, number one, what private institutions do you accept through your company to work for you? And number two, what is training like for drivers that already have their CDL? What's entailed in that? Am I going out with somebody for 3 months to, learn how they drive with a trainer, learn to back up a little bit better, have a little bit of experience with somebody looking over my shoulder to make sure I'm doing it right and coaching me along the way? Is it going to be operated like a team? So make sure you ask them what's training like for somebody that already has a CDL. This way you know what you're getting ready to get into. The same question should apply for this. Where is that training going to take place at? Is there transportation there? Do you guys provide food and lodging? All things that you need to consider before you get on a bus to go to a completely different state. You need to know what you're getting into. Another thing you should ask if you're coming from a private truck driving school is if they offer tuition reimbursement. A lot of these major carriers will offer some sort of incentive to come work for them. One of those incentives is to take care of your tuition that you just accrued for going through CDL school. Now, this is normally paid out more than, the first day you get there. You're not going to get all the money. It's going to be spanned out over a 6-month time, a year time. It just kind of all depends on the company. So ask that as well. Okay, you guys offer tuition reimbursement. How long does it take to pay back my loan? Another question you need to ask is, what is the pay for somebody during training? A lot of times it's a lot less than what it will be if you're an individual driver or a solo driver, just because you're still getting trained, you're in a truck with somebody else, you're learning, you're not quite experienced enough yet to get the full benefits of being a truck driver and get the top pay. So you should ask, what is my pay going to be like you would with any company that you're going to work for. You need to have an expectation of what you're going to make. Now, be cautious. If they offer you a number that is a yearly salary, like $65,000 a year, $45,000 a year, whatever it is, that's not what you're going to be making. You need to make sure you find out whether it's a cents per mile pay, percentage pay, paid by the load, or paid by the hour. Those are the 4 most common ways that you get paid as a truck driver. You also need to ask, what is the pay for somebody that has already gone through training, that they're a solo driver now? Do I get an increase in pay just because I've completed this level of experience? Or do I have to continue on as a solo driver making the same amount that I was during training? Now, if you push them to get that cents per mile, which is very common in the trucking industry, that's probably the top way people are paid in the trucking industry is cents per mile. Which means if you run 1 mile, for that 1 mile you ran, you can earn anywhere from 35 cents a mile to 75 cents a mile, sometimes more or sometimes less. So this means you realistically need to find out how many miles you're going to be running in order to calculate what your payment is going to be. So the next question right after you get that cents per mile answer, say you make 50 cents a mile, okay, approximately how many miles do I get per week in order to figure out that number? So if they say that you're making 50 cents a mile and you get 1,000 miles per week, do the math. That means you're going to make $500 for the week, before taxes, obviously. Another question concerning pay is, outside of the cents per mile, is there anything else that you guys pay me to do? Specifically on this question, you need to be focused on detention pay, which is the amount of pay that you get for sitting over a certain amount of time at a dock. Most of the time it's 2 hours. Anything past that, you make a certain dollar per hour rate. The other thing in that category is layover pay. If you make it to the receiver in the time that you were supposed to be there and they refuse to unload you that day and say you're going to have to come back the next day, a layover pay is what you get paid to sit overnight and lay over in that area waiting for them to open up the next morning to go deliver. And the two other ones that go hand in hand is stop pay and unload fee. So basically, do they pay for an extra stop in the load? Most do not pay for a pickup and a delivery. So you pick up the load, you deliver the load, you don't get paid any extra for that. But if there's a midway stop during that trip, a lot of companies will pay for it. If not, you should probably press them to pay for that because that's extra time that you have to be down. And then obviously unload fee, if you're having to move any pallets, if you're having to restack anything, if you're having a count, you should be paid for that as well. Another question you should ask, obviously, if you're in the trucking field, you want some good insurance, health insurance, workman's comp, things like that. So ask them, hey, do you guys provide insurance? And that's a pretty self-explanatory question to ask. Another great question, and it all depends on what you want in your life and want out of your career. But the big question that a lot of people have is how much home time am I going to get? Number one, during training, and number two, when I become a solo driver. And companies have a bunch of different answers for this. Well, it depends on how long you want to stay out. Okay, what does that mean? Like, what is the minimum requirement for me to be at work on duty before I get some home time? A lot of companies have a day's home per week's out on the road. And most of the time it's 1 day per every week. So say you work for 2 weeks out on the road, you get 1 weekend off. This is pretty common, pretty standard, especially amongst major carriers. But a lot of companies have multiple different options. They have over-the-road options, dedicated freight. Some even have moved to having some home daily routes. So figure out what you want out of the career. Do you want to travel more? Do you want to be home more? And start thinking about those types of questions for your career as you're moving along. And then finally, before you sign on with any company, they need to vet you as well. And this normally includes a background check, drug test, looking over your driving history in a car versus in a truck, and determining whether or not they want to hire you off of that. So what you need to ask them is, what qualifications do you require in order for me to work with you? And most are going to say a acceptable background, a medical card, a CDL, and pass a drug screen. And a lot of companies test the drivers once they get there as well. They'll do a road test to see if you drive well enough in that short little 30-minute to an hour trip to figure out whether or not they're going to keep you on board and that you're a good enough driver to drive their trucks. Remember, these trucks are thousands of dollars. On top of the insurance, on top of the freight, on top of all that, it's very expensive to run a semi-truck. So they want to make sure that they have a qualified driver in the driver's seat. Now, I know a lot of you watching this are thinking about getting into trucking, or you've already got your CDL and you're looking for your training job to go to learn a little bit more. Just keep in mind that a lot of companies have higher standards than other companies. So keep up the hard work trying to find that right company, do some research, and find out everything you need to know about these companies. And if you don't get the exact job that you want and the exact company that you want, give it some time, give it 6 months to a year before you start moving on to the next company. I promise you, the next best thing is right around the corner. And once you get to a certain level of experience, a year, 2 years, 3 years, it turns into you vetting the company more than the company vetting you. And what I mean by that is you get to pick and choose which company you want to work for based off of your needs. So hang in there, get through the first couple of months. I hope to see you out there on the road. Hey, if you want to see what not to do as a truck driver or a motorist in general, click my reaction playlist right here. This has a bunch of different crashes in it that I'm reacting to and letting you know what to and not to do in that situation. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. All right, bye.